What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to another video and another week of WandaVision. Here we are with the second week of the show and the third episode. On the first day, they dropped the first 2 episodes, and from what I heard from some of the people who got to see the first 3 episodes early, the third episode is where things were going to start to unfold a little more. After having seen the third episode, I can say that things definitely started to get a little more interesting, but they didn't give me at least enough, or in my opinion, they didn't give me at least what I was hoping for to really start diving into the story. If you guys saw my review for last week's episodes, you know that I enjoyed the show. I liked what they were going for, something very different with this sitcom vibe. It appears that every week, every episode is going to take place in a different decade and kind of, try to emulate a different decade of sitcoms. The first episode was the 50s, then the 60s for the second episode, and then this episode is the 70s. So it's color, definitely has an intro that's a little bit more 70s as far as the aesthetic and the feel and the music and all that jazz. And at the very end of the last episode, by the way, I'm jumping straight into spoilers, we saw that Wanda was pregnant. So it was clear when you're watching the first 2 episodes that there's something else going on. Wanda is clearly in some sort of false reality. And at the very end of the second episode, when she's pregnant and then the dude comes out with the bee costume, she realizes something is wrong, says no, and kind of reverses time back to this happy moment. It's clear that Vision is really dead and she's in some sort of false reality, trying to live this fantasy life that she wants to have with Vision that just isn't gonna happen. So this episode starts off with her being pregnant, and throughout the course of the episode, she's becoming more and more pregnant, literally to the point where she ends up giving birth. Her whole pregnancy is completely and utterly sped up, and I would say majority of the episode is, spent in that silly 70s sitcom vibe. I enjoy what they're going for with this show. I think as a fan of Paul Bettany, as a fan of Elizabeth Olson, as a fan of Wanda Maximoff, and of Vision, I really enjoy being able to see these 2 actors play these characters that we already know and love in a very fun and whimsical kind of way. This show definitely does, have some nice tributes to certain eras of different sitcoms, and I look forward to seeing how they do that over the course of the next few episodes. But I really do hope that the episodes start to drizzle in a little bit more of what's really happening, because if I'm not mistaken, it's only going to be an 8-episode series, and I believe it's a limited series if I'm not mistaken, so I don't believe there's going to be a second season, and I think it's kind of just going to be leading in to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, if I'm not mistaken, or at least into what's going to be happening in future MCU films. So yeah, over the course of the episode, it's just kind of another episode of kind of silly antics. And near the end of the episode, Wanda is at the house alone, pregnant. There's kind of just like a whole gag where she's trying to hide her belly from Geraldine, who came over. And I noticed right out of the gate when I saw Geraldine that she had the S.w.o.r.d logo on her necklace, which we did see drizzled in between the first and second episode. So something's clearly going on with Geraldine, and then it ends up kind of becoming something that they actually mention. They end up zooming in on it. Wanda's like, what does that symbol mean? Geraldine's acting all strange. There's a moment where Wanda mentions that she's a twin after she gives birth to the twins in this episode, and Geraldine's like, oh yeah, like your brother was killed by Ultron, right? And Wanda's like, wait, what? And so it kind of causes this very awkward, strange moment. Geraldine ends up leaving. There's a moment where Vision's outside talking to the character Herb, I believe is what his name is, and Kathryn Hahn's character, and they're kind of like whispering, kind of telling each other something. They're talking about Geraldine and how she's new to town, and that she's just kind of around but doesn't have a home, and there's something strange there, but they don't really want to talk to Vision about it. So there's some mystery kind of being laid out as the episodes go on, and then the episode actually ends with the aspect ratio of the screen changing, and the color palette of the episode changing just a little bit, and then we see Geraldine kind of fly out of what seems to be some sort of portal, or kind of phase through some sort of reality, and then she's surrounded by a bunch of vehicles and people with weapons and helicopters, and it seems like that's the real world outside of this false reality that Wanda is living in. So I'm very, very curious to see what they do with the next episode. I don't have an abundance to say other than the fact that, this was an episode about Wanda being pregnant and the silly, fun sitcom antics and jokes and gags leading up to some of these very strange kind of uncoverings. There's also another like commercial in the middle of the episode, similar to the first two episodes, where one, I believe in the first episode, was like a Tony Stark product. The second episode was a Hydra product, and this one again was a Hydra product. But it's kind of disguised as like some sort of like silly thing. Like in this episode, it's soap, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, third episode of WandaVision, not overly eventful. I can't help but feel like these first three episodes would probably turn off some people who are Marvel fans, particularly for maybe some of the darker tone, who like the lighthearted, fun stuff that kind of is drizzled in, but are kind of there for, you know, the action and the adventure element of it. This show definitely seems to be leaning heavily on very subtle mystery and kind of hints and nods at things over these last three episodes. And I can only imagine as we get closer to the end of the season that it's going to kind of, you know, boil over. Things are going to start happening. Things are going to start to be unfolding, unraveling, uncovered. And so I am very much curious to see where they go with that. But as for this episode in and of itself, you know, it was silly. I wasn't necessarily laughing at the jokes, but it's nice to see Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen again in these roles and having fun with it. I liked, you know, the name drop of Pietro, you know, her brother Quicksilver from Age of Ultron. So they're definitely starting to pique my interest as far as how this plays into the bigger universe. But in and of itself, I found the episode to kind of be uneventful until the very last chunk of the episode, which is kind of similar to what they did with the first two episodes. But I did like it. Don't get me wrong, I did like it. I just want to see kind of what's happening already, you know? We're 3 episodes deep, and I feel like most of it has just kind of been these silly antics. And again, I like that because I like the fact that they're kind of swinging for the fences. They're doing something different. But at the same time, I can't help but feel like I want the story to start to pick up a little bit more, other than these small little drizzlings of mystery that we've been getting at near the end of the episodes, you know? So yeah, guys, that's going to be my quick thoughts on WandaVision episode 3. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Can't wait to see what happens next week for the 4th episode. And yeah, all in all, I am really exhausted right now, and I'm going to go back to sleep. So thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.